Hey everyone, welcome to Drifting on Purpose, where we explore the ebb and flow of the uncertainties of life and how to authentically navigate them. We are your hosts. I'm Addie.
And I'm Asriel. Our mission is to cultivate a community of deep thinkers looking to take the path less traveled to uncover their true selves.
Topics range from authenticity, overcoming challenges, finding your purpose, and so much more.
We can't wait to share our conversations, our community, and our stories with you. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow along. Thanks for being here. Your support is so appreciated.
On today's episode, we are so excited to be chatting with Coach Cole Zesiger. Cole is a relationship coach that helps people grow through their breakups and move towards a better future, whether it's with or without your ex. He has a social media following of over 500,000 and has helped more than 950 clients successfully save their relationships or move on to a healthier and happier self. Cole has a plethora of resources on his social media pages, including approachable and relatable reels, journal prompts, free guidebooks, and is even hosting a retreat with marriage and family therapist Zach Hazlitt in Moab, Utah this June. So Cole, we are so excited that you're here and we can't wait to talk about heartbreak and how you make it a little less painful. So thanks for being here.
I'm excited too. That intro was awesome. I feel special.
Well, you are special. So, for some of our followers who may not know you, how did you kind of come into this role of being a relationship coach and wanting to help others through a very painful process?
Kind of randomly. So I was studying pre-med and I graduated with that from college and I was taking the MCAT and applying to medical school. And right before I took the test, I got divorced from my wife and it was terrible. I got married super young. I was 20 and we were married for close to 3 years. So at 23, I was going through a divorce and I hadn't had any like examples of divorce in my family. Everyone was married for a really long time. So I kind of felt like the black sheep. I felt like a failure. And my first thought, which was not a good thought, we'll go over that later, was I just need to find another girlfriend like as fast as possible. So I did. After 2 weeks of being separated, I got another girlfriend on a dating app and it made me feel better at first. All the pain seemed to go away and I was like, okay, cool. I figured this all out again. And I dated her for about a year and then all of my old patterns, like being critical of my partner, having low self-worth, started to reappear. And we started talking about like getting engaged in the future by that point. And I just was terrified and became super distant because I never handled any of the pain from my past. And she broke up with me too.
Mhm.
So at that point, I realized that I could not just get another girlfriend again. That didn't work. So I decided to learn all that I could about relationships. I really blamed myself and I had a hard time with that. And I wanted to become good at them so that I wouldn't end up messing it up again. That's what I thought. So what I did was I at first was just extremely obsessed with getting her back. So I watched like 9 hours a day of YouTube videos on how to get my ex back because I was like dying.
Mhm.
And I also really liked entrepreneurship my whole life, and I wanted to make some like passive income during medical school. So my thought was, I'll write a book and make a TikTok and then get popular and everyone will buy my book, which isn't really that true, but I thought it was. So that was why I started. I just pretty much started making videos on TikTok, parroting what I heard the YouTube guys saying that I watched. But I did good. Like I made 3 videos every single day.
Mhm.
And by about 6 months in, I had 100,000 followers on TikTok. And I had more of my own ideas by that point because I'd made whatever 3 times 6 months videos is a lot. And yeah, I ended up really coming to love it. I ended up choosing it over medical school because what I really wanted from that was I wanted to make relationships and really connect with people who are going through a really hard time. I like being there for those kind of people.
Mhm.
And I I've ended up meeting some incredible people from all around the world now. And the coolest thing that happened was actually watching my videos with my wife, Jocelyn. She actually went through a divorce too and ended up watching my videos for like a really long time. And she just by like the background, because I like walk around outside, noticed that like whoa, those mountains are like right next to my house. And it turned out we like live next to each other. So
That's
she messaged me and then we dated for a while and now she's pregnant and we're gonna have a daughter in July. So that was the best thing to come from it. Um,
Congratulations.
that is
Wow. That's
amazing. That is so
amazing. Oh
cool.
my gosh.
thanks.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, just from my own personal experience, when I was going through my horrible divorce, and on top of that, I was dating somebody and we did go through a breakup. That's how I found you. And I felt like your videos and your reels are so approachable. Like they're so just attainable in the sense that like you're gonna be okay. And you just have a very approachable demeanor to you and very sound advice. And I think that's why a lot of people are drawn to who you are and how you help them, because it's easy to take in this information, but you yourself have such a incredible energy about you that I feel like just helps people feel like, okay, like we can do this, like we can do this. And so,
That's awesome.
from my own
Thank
personal
you.
experience, yes, I want to say thank you because you helped me so much. And, that's why we wanted you on this blog. And I'm just so honored that you're here. So thank you.
Thank you. How are you doing now? Did it work?
It worked. I mean, we're back together.
Oh, okay,
So
cool.
the no contact, it was a really rough 6 months. But
Yeah.
I worked on myself. I went to therapy sometimes twice a week. I tried new experiences. I really opened up and kind of got out of my shell, started this podcast. I think this idea came in the summer, and then, we eventually got it
Cool.
rolling. Took a couple months, but, I do feel like I know myself more. I do feel like I broke through some of the patterns and some of the unhealed traumas from the divorce and even from the
Yeah.
breakup. So yeah, it's tough work. I'm not going to say it's a walk in the park, but I think once you're committed to doing it, the other side just feels so much better and just so much more aligned. So
Awesome. Cool. Awesome.
yeah. So, one thing I wanted to ask you is, what are some common issues you see among some of your clients when they're going through like breakups, or when they're going through just trying to rebuild themselves after a breakup?
So I think one of the main reasons people end up breaking up is protecting themselves, like self-protection. A lot of people, when they end up having what's called their attachment system activated, so there's certain attachment needs that we all need, like to feel loved or to feel taken care of. If you feel like that's getting threatened, a lot of people react in self-protective ways where they end up hurting their partner back. And they get a lot of anxiety. They don't act how they usually would. And if people don't have the tools or haven't learned how to manage that kind of thing or how to communicate that this is actually what's happening, my attachment style is being activated, then they can end up hurting their partners. And most people get hurt, misunderstand each other, and end up breaking up. Um, so that's probably the most common one I see for why people break up.
Interesting. And would you say more people are avoidant, anxious, or there's some other ones that you want to throw out at us that we may
Yeah,
not
sure.
know?
So she's talking about, if you haven't heard about attachment styles, there's four common ones. And pretty much what they are is they're a way of relating to other people that you learned growing up. So based on how your parents or caretakers treated you and how consistently they met your needs, which can be a function of how well their needs were met growing up, like how they learned how to relate to people, you can develop either a secure attachment, an anxious attachment, an avoidant attachment, or a disorganized attachment. I'll go through them really quick. So if your parents were there for you really consistently growing up, like if you were hungry, thirsty, you got in like an argument at school with a classmate, and your parents are on your side, they show you love consistently. You grow up with a couple beliefs. The first one is, I'm good enough for love, like I deserve it. And the second one is, the world is good. Love is good. It's abundant. It's there because that's what your parents showed you. So that's what you grow up believing. So those people, when they go out into the world and they start falling in love with people, they act like that. They trust other people. They assume they have good intentions. They're comfortable with distance or closeness. They are vulnerable with their own feelings and good at communicating those things because they believe they're deserving of love. So they can be themselves around other people and still get love. The next one, which that's about 50% of the population, is secure. The next common one is anxious. This is the one I more naturally am. And I did a lot of these things in relationships that really contributed to the end of them. And I like have to manage it now. This one is anxious if your parents are there for you, but more inconsistently.
Mhm.
So it doesn't mean they're bad parents. Like they can be, but most of the time they're not. Most of the time they're just busy with other siblings or busy at work, or maybe they're getting divorced. Maybe they have their own mental health stuff going on. If they are there sometimes for that kid, but not other times, the kid can come to believe that they're not good enough. They're the reason the parents aren't there for them all the time. And they carry that belief with them into adulthood. They think that love is rare. And if it ever shows up, they need to hold on to it really, really tight because it's trying to get away because they don't really deserve it. So they end up becoming really needy and clingy. They assume all the time that their partner is going to leave them. So they're always trying to do damage control to make sure that doesn't happen. They're always asking, are you okay? Are we okay? And they assume their partner's cheating on them. They get jealous all the time if their partner goes out to get groceries and is gone an hour longer or 20 minutes longer than they thought, that they assume that they found someone else. And they put too much pressure on the relationship that can sometimes act as a self-fulfilling prophecy that ends the relationship. That's about like 22-ish% of people. The next one, avoidant, is about the same 22-ish%. Similar upbringing where things are inconsistent, but maybe also love wasn't shown super openly in the family. There wasn't like I love you said a lot. Maybe they had to grow up too fast for different circumstances where they weren't really allowed to be a kid. Maybe they trusted someone and got let down and were shown as a little kid that trusting was not okay. So they grow up really self-reliant, believing that they're good, but love is bad, and they have a hard time getting close to people. So as an adult, what this looks like is they're often in a lot of short relationships and they'll end them. Anytime relationships upgrade, like becoming official or meeting parents or getting engaged, they'll suddenly end things. They feel a lot of stress around communicating their feelings. And overall, they're just afraid about being open with someone because they think if they are and they don't keep people at arm's length, then they're going to get hurt by them. So they never end up getting those deep connections. The last about like 3% is disorganized attachment. This one is people who grew up with really traumatic childhoods. And they're kind of you can imagine like a mix of anxious and avoidant, but turned up to 11, where they can't get close to you because they're going to get hurt, but they also can't leave you because they're not good enough and they'll never find anyone else. So they're constantly pushing and pulling. Everything feels like life or death, big explosions of screaming frequently. And yeah, those are attachment styles.
Wow.
Yikes. Yeah, a lot going on. I'm definitely an anxious attachment. I know that just through my
Yeah.
own therapy. But as you talk about like the different percentages and just understanding your attachment style, what are some things that you can do to sort of discover what you are or kind of work through some of those patterns that you were just talking about?
Yeah. So first, it's good to realize that they're not just buckets that you're stuck in. So Addie mentioned that like you can work out of them, and you totally can. You're not born with an attachment style. You develop it based on how like the environment you grow up in is. So you can do things to change that too. And the second thing, they're not just solid buckets. Like you're not only anxious or only avoidant. It's more like a spectrum that you're like avoidant would be over to the left, secure is in the middle, and anxious is on the right, and disorganized is not going to be on my spectrum because I don't know how to put on the line. But you're a lot of people are somewhere on that line. So there's different varying levels of severity with it. But the way that you can overcome them, for me, the thing that made the biggest difference was teaching myself through evidence that I wasn't someone who was super leavable. There's a couple ways you can do that. So this I guess will be how to overcome anxious attachment style more. We can talk about avoidant in a second. But for me, like I first thought about what beliefs I had about myself that caused me to think that everyone's going to leave me. And those beliefs usually come from evidence. So I had solid evidence that I was very leavable. My wife did it and the girlfriend did it. So after that, I was like, okay, the only two people I've really dated super seriously that knew everything about me both decided that I wasn't worth loving and left. And that's not all the way true. Like I did some stuff and they did some stuff that ended the relationship, but that's how I interpreted it. So I saw this quote one time that said that self-esteem is evidence-based, and I didn't realize it at the time, but the thing that I did well that actually helped me get better was I gave myself evidence that I was awesome. Which right after the second girl broke up with me, I moved in with my parents after the divorce. And then the whole year I dated her, I just lived with them. And then when she left, I had no friends because I just focused everything on my life on her. And I lived with my parents and I was 24, 25, and I was like, I've got nothing going on. So I moved. I found a whole group of new friends. I got a different job. I started making the TikTok videos and I got successful. I went on, I think, 11 trips in 4 months. And like, just, I did a lot of things that proved to myself that I had control over my life. And when I did that, like the first time that I noticed that it was actually different was I was dating Jocelyn, which was like a year-ish into this self change journey.
Mhm.
I was going over to a party to set up chairs. It was across the street from our apartment, and she was going to come too, but she had to tie her Converse, and that takes a long time. I had Vans, I could just slip them on. So I was like, okay, I'll walk over and I'll see you in like 30 seconds. And I got there and like 30 minutes passed and she didn't show up. And then an hour passed and she didn't show up. And I could feel like the anxiety part of me start to build up and be like, she's probably falling in love with one of my roommates right now. And like that's what old me would have thought, the anxious part of me. But because I'd done all those things and I really liked who I was, I didn't believe as much that she would just leave. And like it was still there, and I still get those thoughts sometimes. But because of that, I was able to realize what I was thinking, and I was like, no, she's great. She loves me. She loves helping other people. I know one of my roommates is struggling with dating right now. She's probably just helping him through that. And then she came over and she told me that that was exactly what was going on. And then we had a great night where before, if I was still like super anxious, I probably would have gone over there, started a fight, ruined the party, and then like we would have argued for like a week. So you definitely can change it. And that's when I first noticed I did. But it came from creating a life that I really enjoyed living and also being around people that and finding people that really showed me that I was worth being around too, because I didn't really believe that. So those new friends that I made showed myself that too.
Have you ever heard of this concept of self-efficacy theory? It's like a
Yeah,
psychology.
sounds cool though.
So it's been around for like 30 years. It was started by Albert Bandura. It's psychology. It's
Yeah.
basically like the study of self-confidence. And it's
Okay.
so fascinating how you're talking about it and the steps that you take. So you self-efficacy is essentially the belief that I can do what I say I will do, or the
Yeah.
belief that I can create the world that I want, that create my life the way I want to, essentially. So that's
Yeah.
the definition of confidence, trusting yourself, believing in yourself, right? And I
Yeah.
love how you kind of just did this on your own in your own way, in your own journey. So you can influence efficacy through mastery experiences by either
Yeah.
recalling things that you've done in your past or creating them in the moment. And you literally were doing that by deciding to do this business, deciding to go on these trips, and choosing these different things. And through that, you influenced your own confidence, your own efficacy. And it's
That's
really,
cool.
it's really, really amazing. It's cool to hear you talk about it and just see it live, as it's going.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't know it had a name. Now I can say something to it. That's amazing.
What were some of your greatest experiences while you were traveling or kind of going through this self-discovery phase?
The best one was Iceland. So I started dating people after 3 or 4 months of the breakup. Like I set a time first that I was going to not date people because I realized that was my pattern that didn't work. Like I couldn't just jump into another relationship. And that's a common thing people do. Like it tricks you into thinking you're better because it does distract you from your pain for a little bit, but it doesn't actually go away. So I took some time off dating and then I started like getting on Hinge and dating people. And one girl on the second date asked me if I would go to Iceland with her and like two friends. And I was just in this mode of I'm gonna do everything
Yeah.
to try to like make my life good. So I just went. And it wasn't a smart financial decision. It ended up being one because like I ended up like getting confident and making a good business, but like I had like $200 in my bank account and I spent like $2,000 on the trip on my credit card. So it wasn't that smart that way. but I'm really glad I did it. And pretty much we left 2 weeks after she asked me. They'd been planning it for 6 months, and then I just like piggybacked on the trip and we flew to Iceland. I had to have a different flight than all of them because they bought them 6 months ago. So I ended up in Denmark by myself for like 12 hours for the way there and the way back, which was cool because I had some followers on TikTok by then. So I met some people in Denmark that like knew me from TikTok and we went around.
That is
And
so cool.
yeah, I'd never done anything like that. Like I'd been on trips with my family, and I did go on a mission for my church for 2 years in the Philippines, but I'd never done anything just like alone with people I didn't know at all. So that really showed me that I could.
Mhm.
And like I'd seen people who had done things like that, and I thought they were awesome. So it was cool to become one of them when I didn't think that I was. Like 3 months before that, I was just living with my parents and had no friends. And then all of a sudden I was with friends in Iceland. So it really built my confidence. That one did. That one made a significant difference.
That's incredible. I've always wanted to go to Iceland, but yeah, just getting on a
Awesome.
plane, taking, just saying yes to life experiences and being open to whatever comes your way. It's definitely a confidence booster and can really open your eyes and your perspective to just different cultures, different people, and all of the above. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. So I know you talk a lot about um, the no contact method and why it's guaranteed to work because you're either going to get your ex back or you're going to move forward and live a life because you've worked on yourself. So can you tell our listeners a little bit more about like the no contact method and how it's helped your clients?
So right when you get broken up with, it's it's a really big imbalance of power between the person who does it and the person who gets broken up with. Because usually the person who initiates it knows it's going to happen for like months or
Mhm.
weeks at the least. And the other person, a lot of the time, doesn't know at all that it's coming. So all of a sudden, you're just supposed to fall out of love with someone immediately. And all of your friends all of a sudden come out of the woodwork and tell you, oh, we never liked her. Like, she actually wasn't that pretty. You could find someone better anyway. We always thought this. And they just want you to go and date other people like that day when to you, like 48 hours earlier, that was cheating. And now you're just supposed to do it. So what people end up doing a lot of the time because they're in that mindset is begging for the person to stay and trying to get them to like change their mind and fix it because again they didn't have any buildup, they were just in love and then all of a sudden they're getting left, so they start to scramble. And usually the person who's doing the breaking up with has mentally prepared for that, so they become really really cold and shut off because they know that you're going to try to convince them to stay. They've built up this idea that they need to break up with you, so they're going to be at their strongest the days and weeks right after the breakup. So a lot of the times when people try to convince their ex to come back during that time, they're setting up a dynamic where they're enemies. They're like on opposite teams. They're against each other. They're
Mhm.
trying to fight for the relationship, but they're fighting against their partner. And you can't end up with someone or coming to a compromise when you guys have opposite ideas and you're fighting against each other. Like fundamentally, they want the exact opposite thing. One wants away and one wants to stay. So what no contact does is first it lets your ex actually have that breakup and decision where they've prepared for a long time that this person's going to fight me. So if you just say like I really want you to be in my life. I disagree with this. I love you so much, but I respect your decision and I'll leave you alone. Like you can reach out to me if you change your mind. Then they're going to go off and usually they feel pretty good for a while, like a month or two because they don't have this big stress going on in their head anymore about breaking up with you. They did it. But then a lot of times people end up getting curious because they're like, why are they not chasing after me like I thought they would? Maybe they do have more value than I thought they did. So that's kind of the getting back together stage. The only other option really is continuing to beg or faking to be their friend. And what usually happens is they get more and more mean because you won't leave them alone. You're bugging them. Or if you pretend to be their friend, a lot of times what happens is they do think you're just their friend, and friends are comfortable with you dating other people. So they start dating someone else, they tell you about it, and then you realize you've got to take off your mask and reveal your true intentions. And then you explode saying you really love the person. And then they feel betrayed because you did lie to them for months. So those two usually don't work. That's usually what people try. Those are the alternatives to no contact. So no contact, in my opinion, gives the best chances to get someone back. As for moving on, you also need space from them if you're going to get better in any way. I was lucky because both of my exes shut things down with me pretty hard because I was someone who would have just kept begging like crazy, and they both just like got rid of me. So like I'm glad they did that because it helped me actually have that space. But I've talked to a lot of people who I think the longest I've heard of is 8 years, where they've had like consistent semi contact with their ex, and they're not over them at all
Wow.
because they keep trying to like build a life and do something, but they're tied down to this hope that maybe this will happen, and they keep going back and forth to it. So you also need that space if you're going to have any hope of moving on. And the best way to balance it that I found is, as long as you're doing the right things at first, I don't think your motivation matters too much. If you're doing all the right things because you want your ex back, like you're going no contact, you're going to the gym, you're fixing your family relationships, your friend relationships, your relationship with God or whatever you believe in, you're enjoying your hobbies, your work, and you want to do that because you think your ex will come back and you're like, I need to be the best version of myself for them. Awesome. That's good. Just do all the right things. You'll get better. And if if on the other hand though, like that hope just keeps you stuck and you don't get out of bed and you just sit there looking at pictures, that's when I don't think the hope is helpful. And that's when I think you should try your best to stop hoping. But it's the actions and doing the things that actually makes you be happy in a year, whether you're back with your ex or not.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So is that like focusing on yourself, like the whole cliche, date yourself, become the person
Kinda.
you wanna date?
Partly. Okay, this is the thing I think is I don't think that many people talk about this one. So I think that's a good starting point, but it's not the end.
Hmm.
Like you should focus on, yeah, the cliche stuff, dating yourself, doing all the good things. But I do think that humans are built to connect with other people and to help other people. So if you're trying to replace a relationship where you loved someone and gave your whole soul to someone by just focusing on yourself, I don't think it's a complete enough replacement. So one thing I tell people that will help them, and another thing I did that I didn't mention is finding causes that you really support, either like a volunteer opportunity near your home. And I like to start by thinking about things that I really hate about the world and
Hmm.
want to change. And then try to like Google volunteer opportunities near you that do that, or just look for friends or family members in your own circle that are struggling with things. And if you can focus on helping them, I think it convinces your brain that you're doing better than you actually are because you're having time that you can help other people. And that's a thing that made a big difference for me too. So yes, date yourself, but also majorly focus on serving other people and making their lives better. And that helps you feel better too.
Something bigger than yourself, beyond
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah, that's
Yep.
cool. I never heard of that in terms of relationship building or
Yeah.
healing even. That's really amazing.
So there are often times when in relationships, people don't get closure. And that can be extremely painful and traumatizing. And so when somebody doesn't have that closure that they're looking for, how how can they move on to sort of close that chapter and start to heal?
Two, three things. So I think there's three reasons why people don't, um, or why they think they need the closure so bad.
Mm.
One is what's called the sunk cost bias. So we'll go over that. The next is not forgiving yourself. And the last is tying your worth to what your partner thinks about you. So if I forget what I'm talking about, please remind me. I want to talk about those three. But the
Perfect.
first one is sunk cost bias. So a lot of us think that, well, what sunk cost bias is if you sink a lot of time or effort into something, you want it to work.
Mhm.
So one example that I talk about is like if you start a hot chocolate business in like the desert and no one's buying any, but you like invested $10,000 to buy your truck and all the ingredients, then you might end up continuing to invest a lot of money into this hot chocolate business because you're like, I put so much into it already. I can't just let it go to waste.
Hmm.
When really it'd be better to waste it than keep putting money because the desert's not going to get cold. So that happens a lot in relationships that we think I put 2 years or 10 years into this person. I can't like give up on it. And
I'm so sorry.
but
That's so funny. The only I've
yeah,
heard that, but for
uh-huh.
organization, like
Oh,
declutter
really?
house, people have a sunk cost bias because they don't want to get rid of certain objects in their house because they
Yeah,
have too much
that's
invested in
interesting.
it and they don't want to get rid of it, but it's totally just in their life and overwhelming them, all this stuff. But they're like, I have too much
Yeah,
invested, can't get rid of it. So it's just
yeah,
interesting way to
totally.
think about that. That's the only time I've ever heard of it. So that's really
No, that's
interesting
a good example
observation.
too.
Yeah.
The best one from my life is I told you I applied to medical school and I did all that stuff. So
Yeah.
like what I did was I got like a good GPA. I graduated, I think it was like 3.89. I was a teacher after that for an anatomy class for 2 semesters at the college, like an adjunct professor. I started a nonprofit. I worked for 2 years at a doctor's office, and I got 97th percentile on the MCAT, and then got rejected from every single school 2 years in a row.
That's
And like
insane.
it was crazy. And then the second year, I paid 5 grand for a professional writing coach for my essays too. And they were like, you'll get in any school you want. Like your scores are awesome. Rejected from all of them. And I think I spent like 18 grand on like application fees and that coach to total. So it was 4 years or 5 years because I spent 9 months studying for the MCAT, 9 hours a day, every day, watching YouTube at 3 times speed for like biology and chemistry stuff. And I didn't get in at all. So there were two ways that I could have viewed it. And this is going to be how that I've seen to help through relationships too. I could view it as one, I need to just keep going like crazy and dump more and more and more into it. And I think that would have been valid in this case. Like I think it's good to keep trying and not give up, but I just found something that I liked a lot too. Um, or I could have become very bitter, which is I think a way that people end up dealing with relationships. I could have been like, well, this sucks. Like this isn't fair. All these people are getting in that have worse scores than me. It's rigged. I don't like doctors anymore. Like I could have done that. And then I'd just like be mad every single time I got a cold and went to the doctor. So that wouldn't be good. And I would also have like a lot of resentment and not feel good about what I'm doing now if I did that. So that's what a lot of people do with relationships that I think is one way you can get stuck and need closure so bad is because one, you either think that you put so much effort in that you need it to work because I wasted all my time, or you start just focusing on how bad your partner was, how terrible a person they were, how they abused you and wrecked your life. And really, I think that even if it's true, even if they did do a lot of terrible things, I think you can acknowledge it. But if you let it overcome your life like this, you you get stuck on the closure and you need it and you're not able to move forward. So the way that I've seen to move forward, back on the medical school example, is if I looked for all the ways that it actually did help me and that it was worth it. Because it's not a sunk cost if it was worth it. Like if you have that hot chocolate stand and you learn how to run a stand and now you can move to Alaska and do it, then it's not a waste. So I learned how to teach people in my like anatomy class. I learned that I was smart. I learned that I could, so I like had a lot of confidence. Like I'm an intelligent person. I can learn stuff. I learned that if I work hard, then I can accomplish something that I feel like is impossible. I learned that consistency leads to succeeding because I through the MCAT, like every single day, I saw my scores go up. And all of that ended up helping me to be where I am now and got me my wife Jocelyn and now like a baby and this cool job that I get to talk to people about cool stuff all day. So like it's not a waste. It's very, very worth it. So if you can do that with your relationship, and think, okay, I learned all these good things and actually write them out. I learned what I love about people. I learned what I don't want. I learned these things about myself. I can improve this now. If it's not a waste, then it's a lot easier to move on from. I had a really hard time forgiving myself. That's the second part of why I think a lot of people need closure. A lot of people feel like, especially if they really feel like they genuinely hurt the other person, which I do feel like that. A lot of times when I was feeling insecure, I said really mean things and I would do controlling behaviors. And I felt like for a long time, I needed one of them to come back and say, like, I understand you and I forgive you, for me to feel like I could move past that. Cause I felt like they held the key to me being forgiven. And in therapy, one thing that I learned that really helped me was that forgiveness never has to be earned by anyone to be given. Like if you think about someone that really hurt you, you can choose to forgive them whether you want to or not. They don't have to come back and say sorry. You can do it. So as I thought about that, and I thought about like past me hurting them and saying the things I said, past me can't take a time machine and come back and fix anything. Like I'd said sorry and I'd changed and I'd done all the things that I could do to make it better. So the only choice left was, do I want to punish myself forever or do I want to forgive myself?
Mhm.
And it really took time pondering that forgiveness is a free gift and it does not depend on the deservedness of the person that needs forgiveness. It's a choice that you, as the person offering forgiveness, gets to make whenever you want. So it wasn't easy, but that thought path led me to being able to forgive myself.
Mhm.
What a freeing concept too, if you think about it. Like if you're allowing yourself to forgive yourself, you're releasing the binds of whatever pressure is holding you down.
Yeah. In any context, not just relationships,
Exactly. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
all life. That's a great reminder. Thank you for that. Yeah.
And part three of how you can get past not getting closure is a lot of people will, especially if you were in a relationship where it was kind of volatile and sometimes they would be really proud of you and sometimes you wouldn't get rewarded for good things. You can end up tying your self-worth for what that person thinks of you. And a lot of times, if you tell them really deep parts about you, if you've never shared those things with anyone else, and then all of a sudden they leave, that was like my case, where I felt like this person knows all of me, and then I'm not good enough. So no one else like has that much weight because they don't know as much about me. So what this person thinks really, really matters. And the first thing that helped me get out of that was, and this one actually probably lasted like 2 years. I felt like I made progress with this like 6 months ago was my wife helped me to rehumanize my exes
Mm.
by seeing like they have not been perfect people since the end of the relationship. Like they've done things that I don't think are very kind. And I was giving them the ability to judge me like they are these perfect people. And the funniest way that I can think of it is like you wouldn't take fitness advice from someone who's like really, really big from like lots of McDonald's. Like that's not what you would do, or you wouldn't take financial advice from someone who has like no money. So if the person hasn't been perfectly kind to you, like don't give them all of the weight in deciding if you're a good person or not.
Hmm.
Rehumanize them, see that they're not perfect either, so they don't get to decide if you're good. And that really helped me let go of that. All of these things are going to be thought exercises that you need to sit with and write about for a while.
Mhm.
But if you do and if you ponder on them, those are things that I never got closure, and I don't think I ever will from either one. Like I'm not one of those people who it's like, yeah, me and my ex are best friends now. Like I haven't talked to them like since at all. And it's been hard in those cases, but those things have let me kind of get past that without needing closure.
Mhm. And it's pretty incredible and remarkable to think that through those breakups, you've built such a beautiful life for yourself and just from like the inside out, and you've got your wonderful family, you've got your business, you've got your self-help and your reflections from within. And it's like sometimes those terrible moments are what push us and propel us forward to become better. So kudos to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for anyone, like a divorce or breakup is like the best opportunity ever to
Mhm.
change your life and become so happy. It
Mhm.
doesn't feel like it. It feels like it's the end of the world and every day feels like 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just start as small as you can, like get ready every single day, make your bed, clean your room, and then start to expand it towards helping other people. And maybe sometimes you do crazy stuff like putting a big trip on a credit card, which the Moab trip would be a great choice for you to do. But there's like 8 spots left. But that kind of stuff, like you can really change your life and become so much happier than you could have without it. So it feels like the worst thing ever, but I really think that most of the amazing things in my life and in my character of what I'm proud of who I am are because those things happened to me.
It's so wonderful. And I have to just, yeah, agree so much with that because that's exactly my case, my divorce, the deepest, darkest time of my entire life. But it gave me an opportunity to really examine who I am and say, who am I? Just to even take the opportunity to say, who am I? What do I want from my life? What do I want my life to look like? And from that deepest, darkest experience, I'm doing now what I love to do, something I never thought I could even be doing, helping people for money. Like I'm helping people get better and I get paid to do it. It's like, that's incredible. I'm so blessed and so honored, but it's because of this crazy, deep, dark breakup, horrible breakup that I went through to get here. And just Cole, just thank you so much for your words today, your effortless way that you describe all these things. And I hope all of our listeners, if you're going through anything, look him up, follow along with his journey. Super valuable and so helpful, all the information you're giving. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you so much.
Awesome to be on here.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to take, a last minute trip, Cole has some information on his website and his social media pages about Moab. It looks incredible. I highly recommend you check it out. So, Cole, where can people find you just so we can let our listeners know?
Thanks. So on Instagram, it's Coach Cole Zesiger because there are two of us in the world and the other one got at Cole Zesiger. And then on TikTok, it's just at Cole Zesiger. And my last name is spelled Zesiger. It's kind of hard. But yeah, I'm just there. And again, I would love to talk to you guys. I do one-on-one coaching. I also have courses on how to text your ex, how to get back together in a healthy way, and how to move on. So you can choose whichever one best fits your scenario. But all those can be found through the link in my Instagram and TikTok.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. And thank you everyone for catching us on another episode of Drifting on Purpose. Be sure to subscribe, like, and comment so we can continue to cultivate a community of deep thinkers. We'll see you next week.